Minnesota Wild's Faith and Family Night is this Thursday versus Utah. Ticket pack offer includes a pregame event with Minnesota Wild chaplain Bill Butters, Wild alumni Ryan Carter, and former Gopher Jake Taylor, as well as a game ticket. Learn more at wild.com/faith.
Well, you can win right now. Let's go ahead and do that right now. We have 3 giveaways to do, so let's give away that pair of tickets to Minnesota Wild's Faith and Family Night that tend to be just described. Be the 11th caller at 1-800-320-5326. 1-800-320-5326. And if you're the 11th caller, you win that pair of tickets. The Minnesota Wild's Faith and Family Night this Thursday against Utah at the Fuse Box. Well, Mark Rosen's here.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon to you, too.
Yes, sir. Where do you want to start?
Well, I want to start with you because everybody keeps saying they want to talk Lions football on a Viking station, so I'll go ahead and start with the Lions. Do you consider every time I listen to somebody talk about the game or read about it, it's shocking victory by Washington, stunning victory by Washington, major upset by Washington. Do you consider it? Well, I know they were 8.5 or 9.5 points.
That makes it an upset. I mean, automatically.
Upset.
Right. Not shocking.
See, I'm glad you agree with me because everybody. No. I keep reading that. I want to say it is. I think the media loves stories. The media is in the business of what? Reporting on stories. Right, and telling stories. And so it's much more interesting if you go, what a great upset. I can't believe this happened. Than just, Detroit's defense was beat up. Goff was off. Ben Johnson called a terrible play when he tried to have Jamison Williams throw the ball. And the dopey head coach has got to call a timeout when there's 12 men on the field. And this Washington team is really good. They're 12-5. Well, they won 5 in a row on the last play of the game. And their quarterback apparently is the real deal. He's going to be the rookie of the year. So to me, you're sort of disrespecting Washington or not giving them enough credit.
I just think because Detroit was on this prolific run pretty much all season long, and coming off their major disappointment from a year ago, which added fuel to their disappointment, blowing that lead against the 49ers at halftime. As we all know here in Viking land, it's hard to mentally recover from 2 years in a row from that. As far as the game is concerned, yes. As we saw in the Vikings-Lions game, the Vikings had a half dozen chances in the red zone or within the 10-yard line to put a lot of points on the board, and they failed every single time. And that's a reflection on, the offensive line, reflection on Sam Darnold that day, and maybe a little bit of play calling, whatever you want to call it. It was a combo platter, and I think the lesson learned it's the final stamp of approval. What has to happen after watching the brilliant Jaden Daniels play is, number one, J.J. McCarthy will be the starting quarterback next year, and number two, you have to obviously improve your offensive line because you can't win in this league if you look at the team still standing without both of those. And I think we've seen the evolution of what was a tremendous quarterback class that J.J. McCarthy's a part of, but is yet obviously to get a chance to prove himself. But Caleb Williams, notwithstanding in Chicago, and that could have been a lot of circumstances involved with that. He did play all year long. Bo Nix did a good job. Obviously, Jaden Daniels did a great job. Who am I missing? As far as the rookies go. But, I mean, you got to have one of those guys, and the Vikings hopefully will have one of those guys. But, yeah, the Lions were exposed before that, but yet at the same time, you're thinking, well, don't turn the ball over and you're still going to win the game. I mean, don't turn the ball over 4 times or 5 times, whatever it was. And as you said, Goff was off. He picked the wrong day. I heard the play-by-play guy on with PA when I was driving around this morning for the Lions, and he was saying the same thing. I mean, it's one game. It's not a series. It's not 2 out of 3. And they picked the wrong day to stop sniffing glue, as they say. It just didn't work. A lot of things were not working. The running game was working. Gibbs was...
He's as good as any back. He's different style than your Henrys and your Saquons. You got different style of running backs, but
I'd take so much fun to watch. Montgomery, did okay, but I mean,
I think the knee was bothering him.
I think it was too. And that's a hard thing to come back from. Just you're trying to will yourself back into that, but give Washington credit. I mean, they were opportunistic on defense, got the turnovers, got the picks when they had to, and that's why they're playing in the championship game at Philadelphia on Sunday.
Speaking of Philadelphia against Rams, I thought that was the most. For me, other people argue that Detroit worsening because it was a shootout to the very end. I mean, they finally got to that 2-score margin after the boneheaded 12 men on the field. If they stopped them there, it was only a 3-point game at that point. But anyway, because of the fireworks, you know me, I'm a defense guy. Defense wins championships. I'm a big fan of all that. And I thought there was a lot of, and the weather had something to do with it, but I thought it was really, really good defense played by both Philadelphia and the Rams, and that I thought that was a lot of fun to watch. And I was pulling Rams. I mean, wasn't in any of the teams I root for now is just because I'm going to pick a team to pull for, but I don't really care either way. I just want to see entertaining football, and I thought that was a really entertaining game. Well,
it didn't look like it was going to be, and the Rams ended up coming back, as we all know, and they had a chance. They had the ball, and Matthew Stafford just ran out of time, ran out of downs, basically threw an incompletion on 4th down, and that was the game. They could just ice the clock at that point. Sounds like he's contemplating retirement right now. I don't think he's going to, though, because the one quote he said was, either they asked him this directly or he threw in. I feel like I'm playing pretty good ball right now. Yeah, he did say that. So I maybe not, but I would think, it's like a lot of these guys, if they're convinced they're going to retire, I know some of them do have to think about it, but if he was convinced, he would have said, yeah, that's it for me. I think I'm done. Right. I expect him to come back and play another year, but who knows? Yeah. Well, and as we've talked about even the last couple of weeks, with the emphasis so much on the passing game and what, and you have to have, one of those top receivers in the league, and you got to have a great quarterback. Well, look at the running backs that we saw on display this past weekend with Saquon Barkley and Jahmyr Gibbs and Derrick Henry and others that were instrumental in getting their teams to where they are this weekend. It still helps to have one of those guys, especially or 2, 3, 4, 5 of those guys. I mean, somebody suggested that at one time. I can't believe anybody would listen to that person. He was told it was crazy. But Drake May was the other guy. Drake May. Drake May. Yeah, he was kind of under wraps this year, as they say. Just not in a good situation, but yeah, very talented kid. Anyway, Rams. Yeah. I mean, it was an entertaining game. I agree. I mean, it was fun to watch, and it's a great weekend of football. It's and now you got. Well, we haven't talked about the other games yet. No, we have not. Don't move on. I will not. No, okay. Because I want to ask you about the Saturday games. Absolutely. The early one, Kansas City, and I don't think I was the only one who said this, but I predicted Kansas City to win, but I said. Mm-hmm. Houston would give them everything they wanted. And that was a really close game. A lot of complaining, as a matter of fact, about the officiating to the point where Mahomes did one of those. They're actually now, I saw a story today saying, will the Mahomes play in which they were called for unnecessary roughness when it wasn't unnecessary roughness? And he kind of goaded him into it because it's like you're acting like you're going to slide maybe, but then you stand up to get another, and then you go down real quick, almost like a flop in basketball or soccer, right? And so now there's talk that they might have to revisit that in all the sports about there has to be something. And again, obviously it has to, you're reading somebody's mind or you're determining if a guy flops in hoops, did he really flop or did he get some contact? It's a judgment call. But that was a pretty big. There was 2 different times when calls went in Kansas City's favor on hits to Mahomes, and I don't think either one of them. Well, the 2 Texans bang into each other, and I try to defend the officials in saying this. Yeah, they of course they should get it right, but when you watch a pro football game, I mentioned this to people, ground level, it's a whole different game than what you're watching on TV. You cannot believe the speed of the game, the ferociousness of the hitting and what's going on and how quickly things are happening. So all the more reason with all the replays and all the opportunities you have, 100%, the 2 calls, the face mask, was it a face mask, not a face mask, and a late hit on the quarterback has to be reviewable. They just have to, because that one play, I'm sure the officials would be happy about it. It's sort of like, well, yeah, we got it wrong. Two guys knocked into each other. They didn't hit Mahomes. Mahomes sold it. And then he tried to do that thing, the okey doke with the trying to go out of bounds, and he slowed down, and that's what he's getting a lot of criticism for because that's just that's chicken bleep as far as I'm concerned. But whatever, the guy's still the best in the game when it comes to clutch time. And the Chiefs still had to earn it, and they did. And the Ravens, we all know what happened at the end of the game, and the unfortunate drop by Andrews, who's one of the most sure-handed tight ends in the league, and and Lamar Jackson dropped the ball. I mean, he admitted that after the game. I mean, they were their own worst enemy playing in those conditions, so they've been snake bit a little bit. But yeah, I think it's. Every year we go through this, and what the league, the rules committee goes through is like, they come up with this crazy kickoff rule, which I still don't quite understand. I mean, I understand it, but I don't know why. Let's have it. Get this right. There's too many plays to be determined. The face mask and the late hit to not have those reviewable. I think they should be reviewable.
I tend to agree. Let's take a break. Tenneby's got a keyword. A couple of other things I want to get back to on what happened over the weekend in the NFL, and then what's upcoming. Also want to give away another pair of tickets, Tenneby. Legendary guitarist Don Felder will be at Treasure Island Resort and Casino this Friday, playing hits from his time with the Eagles and also his solo career. So go ahead. Tickets are now available at TICasino.com. TICasino.com. We've also got a pair to give to you right now at 1-800-320-5326. Be the 11th caller, you'll be a winner. But also a keyword from Tenna.
Yeah, the fan wants to give you a shot to put $1,000 in your hand with our national cash contest. Just enter the keyword green at KFAN.com now for your shot at winning. That keyword is green. Enter now at KFAN.com.
Up to me. They have National Football League, you have taunting penalties, right? If you don't go over the top. And someone pointed out to me, and I don't think they're wrong. Does Travis Kelce taunt every time he makes it? I mean, to me, I don't know why he's not flagged more.
For what? What is he doing?
He'll make a catch. Well, he'll stare a guy down. You're not supposed to stare guys down and do this and do that. And it's almost like, here's what, I guess what the point I was getting about on the Mahomes thing. I hate to be the guy, the conspiracy theory guy. Right. I think Mahomes and Kelce get preferential treatment. I think they do. I think officials intentionally do it because they're afraid that if they don't, because everybody knows right now, Mahomes, Kelce, and Tay-Tay, that's the meal ticket in the National Football League.
Well, the difficult part is when you see Jared Goff get lit up on that interception, and so if that had been Mahomes, that guy would have been capital punishment or something, Yeah. And Mahomes is good enough without having these theatrics, and that's what I say. I go back to that play where he's, about to get out of bounds, and every defensive player understands he's got to pull back, he's got to let up, because otherwise you're going to get automatically flagged. So what does Mahomes do? He stutter steps it.
Yeah.
And he's trying to egg him on, and I guess it's gamesmanship if you can get away with it. Unfortunately, as Tom Brady did many times, it seemed like Mahomes and the Chiefs in particular right now nationally feel like they're getting preferential treatment. Now, I think they still earned the victory. 100%. It wasn't like they weren't the better team that day. They were, as it turns out. But, I don't know. Kelce, to me, I mean, he's usually just doing the old, like a lot of guys do. They're pointing, first down and doing his little theatrical thing. But I don't know. The taunting part, it's like, you used to talk about, it's not, what was it, the wrestling thing you talked about?
Bachman said you can choke them. You could choke an opponent for 4 seconds and not cheating, but 5 you can't.
You could stare at a guy for 2 seconds and not be taunting. If you stare at him for 3, 4, or 5 seconds, it's going to be taunting. If you want to call it that, or glaring at him. And we've seen different examples. Some correctly called, others like, come on, man, that's BS. But anyway,
the opener on Sunday will be Washington at Philadelphia. To me, that's I could see that game going. I had not watched.
Fun to watch them.
I had not watched a Washington game until Saturday night. I'd seen clips, when they do the
same here
highlight package, or if there is a, when they call it a game break and they go and you watch a play. Pretty well-rounded club. I mean, if you're talking about Coach of the Year candidates, KOC is certainly in the running, but the guy from Washington, that was a team that was 4-13 last year. 4-13.
Again, yes.
I mean, obviously, a lot of it has to do with the quarterback, but it's not all quarterback. The coaches, and I know once postseason rolls around, they don't take that into consideration for Coach of the Year. But to take a team that had the second pick overall, that's how bad the team was when you took over, and you got him you get him to the playoffs in 12-5. I think he's got a real good argument to be coach.
A perfect example. I mean, the Bears had the number 1 pick, and obviously they took Caleb Williams, and they had a terrible year.
Correct.
Now they've changed coaches, as we all know, and your guy Ben Johnson's there now. Still a lot of work to roll up your sleeves, and Caleb did play the entire season, but Jaden Daniels. It's hard to argue that this guy is not going to be special for many, many years to come.
Sure looks like it.
And I think if Washington can get Jalen Hurts into, and I don't know what kind of condition he's going to be in. He took a pretty good shot on that knee.
Yeah.
He got bent backwards, and that potentially limits his running ability, which is such a strength of what he does. Because I think if they can get him into passing situations, obvious passing, third and long situations, that's not the strength of Hurts, and it's not the strength of the Eagles right now. I mean, they rely so much on Saquon and Jalen just kind of moving the sticks and keeping things going, and they turn it over to that defense of theirs. So I agree with you. I mean, I think most of the country, the neutral fans, will be rooting for the Commanders on Sunday. I think personally, I'm just not a big Philly fan. Haven't been since I was there that day. Experienced a lot of what went on during an NFC Championship game. But having said that, I think that Philadelphia's kind of had their time. They did win a big game here, as we know, against the Patriots, and it's been decades since Washington, and going back to John Riggins and Joe Theismann and the Hogs and old RFK Stadium.
Well, when they won, it was here.
It was here.
That was the last one they won. They beat the Bills.
Well, that's when that's right.
They beat the Bills here.
Yeah, it was.
And Washington won their last
big game. Yep.
That was the Thurman Thomas helmet game. They had to redo the kickoff.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
They redid the kickoff.
It's crazy.
Because they came back late from commercial break. They didn't have it timed right. And so the kickoff happened, and then they came back from break. And then they had to do the kickoff. I was like, what if he would have returned it for a 101-yard touchdown?
Right.
How can you do? I was stunned when they did that.
That was also the last time they haven't had a star-studded halftime show. That was the last.
Oh, really? I didn't remember.
That was the last of the Up With People or Ice Capades skating show at halftime that they had at the Metrodome. It was a long week. I remember that. I was like half falling asleep in this, our press area. I was like, oh man, I'm so beat. I don't care who wins.
Chiefs versus Bills.
Yes. Oh boy.
And at Burrowhead.
Yep.
Teams have had quite the rivalry since 2020. Here's your scores and your results. 2020, they met in the postseason. Chiefs beat the Bills in the AFC title tilt 38-24. 2021 regular season, Bills beat the Chiefs 38-20. 2021 postseason, Chiefs in the divisional round defeat the Bills in overtime 42-36. 2022 regular season, Bills beat the Chiefs 24-20. 2023 regular season, Bills beat the Chiefs 2017. 2023 postseason, Chiefs defeat the Bills 27-24 in the divisional round. And then in 2024, this year, regular season Bills 30
right
to 21 over the Chiefs. There's a theme there that you see is that the Chiefs are 4-0 against the Bills in postseason.
Correct.
0-3 in regular season. So in other words, yeah, the Bills have won all the regular season games, but when it really counts, when it's okay, it's one and done. The Chiefs have won every one of those games.
Now, again, you just mentioned the Super Bowl here. I'd love to see a rematch of that between Buffalo and Washington.
It's hard for me to believe. Well, I shouldn't say hard for me to believe. I know people have really been down on Kansas City this year because I think there are people that felt they got lucky in a number of games. And they did. They had the one, was it Bears that had the field goal kick off the upright? Was that against the Bears? Did Kansas City almost lose to the Bears? They almost lost to somebody where they would have handed them their first loss of the year. Right. The kick went off the upright, a shorter kick. It didn't go. They've won.
Was that Cleveland, maybe?
Maybe it was Cleveland. They've won some games by the skin of their teeth, right?
Yeah.
And so people they weren't that dominant team they had been, and people were holding that again. I certainly wasn't one of those people. I said, well, especially when you heard what Mahomes had said during the regular season, and again, you can say, guys say things as excuses for not being as dominant as they were, but he and I'm paraphrasing, I don't remember the exact quote, but you know what? We play for the postseason. That's what we've won big games before. We did the regular season. We're not concerned if we win 30-3 or 13-3. We just want to win games and qualify. And they went 15-1. They lost the last game because they rested everybody.
It's so hard to stay on top for so long, and they're going for that unprecedented three-peat, and we know that.
And so it's I don't think Buffalo is going to change the narrative. I think they're going to be 0-4 in postseason. I think Kansas City's going to win. Yeah.
Well, it's Mahomes, as we all know, is a really good runner when he has to. Josh Allen's a really good runner because he is a really good runner, and I think that could be the difference in this game. But,
You're picking the Bills, I can tell.
Probably.
Yeah. Well, is that because you want them to win? See, I'd like to see the Bills win as well, but I don't think they will. I think Kansas City's going to win. Yeah. We'll break. We'll come back. One more segment to go. Let's do our last giveaway. 5-iron golf is in the North Loop. I'm the official, unofficial ambassador for Minnesota Golf. What is 5-iron golf? TrackMan simulators. Great atmosphere. Chef-inspired food. Craft cocktails, great atmosphere, and TrackMan technology. Play legendary courses from all over the world. Head to 5irongolf.com to book your adventure, and we're going to give away a $100 gift card to maximize that first trip of yours. 1-800-320-5326. 1-800-320-5326. The 11th caller will win a $100 gift card to 5-iron golf, courtesy of 5-iron golf, the ambassador, and everybody here at the Fan. Couple 13-14 past Common Man program. I'm Common. He's the legendary Mark Rosen. We have it's not a new feature anymore. We probably don't utilize it as well as often as I probably should. We're trying to change that. It's called the KFAN Talkback. If you have the iHeartRadio app, the new and improved iHeartRadio app, if you search stations, you find the Fan. You click the icon in the corner of the screen, microphone icon, and then you have like 30 seconds. You can up to 30 seconds. You can deliver an audio message. Let's take a listen to a couple of these, as long as we have the opportunity to do it. There's this one here. Whoops, Tenneby, did you pot it up?
Yeah.
Oh well.
I don't know why I'm not hearing it. No! You don't have to laugh at me.
Well, I'm just trying to encourage you.
It's not encouraging me. You're making me seem like an idiot.
You.
I'm hitting the playback button. There's an arrow. It's blue. And I can see it's going, but it's not playing. You're sure it's potted up over there, Tenna? Okay.
Yes.
Then I guess try one more time.
What time is it at? I can play it on my side.
2:16.
Yeah. This is Brody.
Oh, boy.
Did Rosen just say that he sniffs glue?
No, I didn't.
I thought you did.
I guess it explains all the stupid takes he has, but you probably should stop doing that, Rosen. It's not good for your brain.
Yeah, see?
First of all, how did Brody learn how to use the talkback?
I don't have any idea.
That is the bigger question. I was talking about, I was talking with one of the teams, like Jared Goff or something, picked the wrong day to start sniffing glue. I wasn't talking about myself. It's an old line from Airplane, the movie, which you probably haven't seen, Brody.
I think you're sniffing glue. We've got John on a liner that says, give me more drugs.
First of all, I don't... I miss having airplane glue in my possession. That was special.
All right.
I don't know. Can you still buy airplane glue?
You probably can.
There's probably a legal substance now.
Tennessee, can you find the 205 talkback?
205. Yes.
Hey guys, this is Pete from St. Paul. Kind of funny how today Rosie says that it wasn't a shocking upset that Washington beat Detroit. But just last week on your show, he said, there's no chance Washington beats Detroit. Walk it back, Rosie. How are you going to do it today?
Yeah, you did say that there was no chance. You said Detroit would win easily. And now you're saying it wasn't shocking. Well, go ahead, Mark.
Well, they were 9-point favorites, and they should have won. I mean, they were favored for that reason. I'm walking it back because I don't think there are that many shocking upsets in this day and age in the NFL. And it cost me 50 big ones for
you did 50 big ones.
Again.
I thought I'd win. I didn't think it'd be immediately.
People are going, I'm easy money. Well, I did pretty well at spread swing all year, so I'm proud of that record. When I'm actually picking,
there's a reason your name is Mark.
I'm picking.
You're an easy Mark.
Really? I did pretty well in spread swing this year up to the last 2 weeks.
Did you win? Yeah.
For the last 2 weeks. I'm still...
Lions did really good. They were 15-2, and they were favored by 9.5 points.
It's Detroit.
You're the Detroit Lions of spread swing.
And I love the fact that the Lion fans are all whining now because poor Ben Johnson had to leave, and he was concentrating on the job.
No, he wasn't.
Concentrating on the Bears.
Yeah, he wasn't.
Come on.
They just lost because they got...
Exactly.
Their defense was decimated. They made a Goff through a couple of awful throws, and then the 12 men in the huddle. Viking fans know all about 12 men in the huddle. That was a huge play in the game.
Yes. I've never forgotten the visual of Brian Billick after the devastating, to me, to this day, the most devastating loss in the history of the franchise, the Atlanta championship game, standing inside the cramped Vikings locker room at Metrodome, answering question after question from reporters in a very kind of monotone Brian Billick way, a matter of fact, of going after the Baltimore Ravens job, which eventually he got. Well, he did get. And I'm looking around the room, and all these guys are in tears. Chris Carter, Randy Moss, these guys are shell-shocked. When you talk about a shocking upset, that was a shocking upset. Even though Atlanta was, what?
Well, they were 14-2
that year.
I didn't think it was a shocking upset.
Well, Vikings were prohibitive favorites.
I know. You can't go with what they say.
This is what I'm saying. If that game, if you don't characterize that as a shocking upset, well, you certainly can't characterize Saturday's game, whatever it was, as a shocking upset.
It wasn't shocking.
Because the Vikings were running roughshod over everyone. But the point of the matter is, Billick, it's as if to say, well, Billick his mind wasn't on the offense of the Vikings that week. Of course it was. And so was Ben Johnson's.
Yeah. Tennessee, let's go with the 154 talkback. 154.
Hey guys, Tom and Rosemount. Just listening to the conversation about you shouldn't change what you're doing when it comes to the playoffs. Somewhat disagree with that. The 98 Vikings, you'll hear an audio of Denny Green saying, this is how we do it all year. Let's keep going for it right before halftime. They fumbled the ball. Atlanta scores right before half. Completely changed the game.
Yeah, and if they kick a field goal at the end, they win. Right. So, I mean,
and there's an exception to every rule, but I would still, You know, there's an old saying, Tim, but you can use this, I think, to write this down. Matter of fact, you can tell it to your kids next time you're doing a pep talk for hockey. Live by the sword, die by the sword. Or as Mike Tyson once said, live by the dog, die by the dog. If that is the way you do things, you continue to do it.
Well, and they didn't continue to do it at the end of the game because they took a knee.
Yeah, they did.
They should have been aggressive there. So they weren't doing what they were doing all season long.
He contradicted himself. And at that point, they were going for the jugular. They score there, the game's over. But we all know there are a whole bunch of other things that happened.
Timmy, let's go to the 127 one. This should be good.
Oh, it wasn't even here.
Common, you really, really, really used to love your show, man, but you just beat a dead horse forever and ever and ever. You're not even funny. You just repeat like a parrot. You're just like a parrot, dude. That's it.
Okay. All right. Well, he got me.
He sure got you. Was he referring to anything in particular?
Does Rosie want a cracker?
That sounds pretty good. Was he referring to anything in particular? Just in general?
They get because we've been going on it today, going over some of the playoff games, and Viking fans want me to be crushed and bitter about the Detroit loss, like they are about their loss to Detroit and the Rams, and the loss to the Falcons that we just talked about, and the loss to the Saints, and the loss to this and that. And I'm not. You're not going to get me to feel it. I wanted him to win. It was a really good football game. Mm-hmm. A little too much offense for me, but it was an entertaining game. They were in it. They had a chance. They made. You got to remember.
You're not going to crawl the fetal position.
Well, the thing is I just have another. I have another woeful tale, or another tale of the woeful shortcomings and inadequacy of the lines. You got 12 men on the field. Coaches are jumping on the sideline. Get off. And Campbell's just standing there like a dope. They don't call him off.
Right.
Ben Johnson tries to. The Lions are still in the game. He just says, I'm going to call Jameson Williams the stupidest guy on the team.
Yeah,
I'm going to have him throw a pass.
I know.
There were so many bad things that happened. It's unfortunate, but last year was more disappointing.
I 100% agree.
24-7 lead in the NFC. This was a divisional game.
Right.
And we were beat up and it wasn't good. And you could just, if you follow them as closely as I do, I just had this sense eventually they're going to lose before they get to the big game.
I had a feeling that
they're just not going to get there. Last year they're up 24-7 at the half in the NFC Championship game. I'm thinking to myself, I'm pinching myself. I'm going,
this is happening.
They're going to the big game, and then they didn't.
Yeah. That was a lot more crushing. I agree.
So, in other words, and so we've just been talking about it today and debating about whether it was and because sports talk radio tends to, when you're on for 3 hours, you tend to talk about some topics, maybe even running them into the ground a little bit. Sorry, I'm parroting myself. I don't know what to tell you. Here's another one. Again, my guess is this is a Viking fan that can't accept the fact that his team they scored a total of 18 points in their last 8 quarters. Let's go to the 116, Tennessee. The 116 talkback.
Hey, Common Randy from Silver Bay. Your esoteric approach is just broken. The Redskins scored almost 100 points less than the Lions all season. The Redskins gave up about 50 points more than the Lions all season. So who really had the worst defense? And who really had the best offense? It was an utter and complete shock to the Lions, to their fan base, and to most of the people that know.
It was to their fan base, yeah.
Wasn't a shock to me.
Well.
Wasn't a shock to worship. It's a shock to people that can't think for themselves. I listen to the national media, listen to the odds makers. They say it's going to be a shock. It's going to be let me tell you something. Detroit scored 50 more points. The Redskins gave up 50 more points in Lions all season. So that's an average of how many a game over a 17-game schedule? What is it? What is the average over a 17-game schedule? 3 points? 4 points?
Yeah, something like that.
That's not that big of a difference. Plus, the schedules are completely different from each team. The Lions scoring 100 more points. We know they had a proficient offense. That's wonderful. They won a bunch of guys. Put it this way. They rang up 50-plus points in consecutive weekends against 2 awful teams, and everything was clicking. You can't. People that go strictly by statistics and by sabermetrics and analytics, you're doomed. I can't listen to this guy's argument. It's ridiculous. You have to go at the moment. Look at every point that the Lions have been giving up 30-plus points a game almost in the past 6 games. The only games they didn't, the woeful Bears and the Vikings, who couldn't figure out Sam Darnold couldn't complete a pass when it was open. Otherwise, they were getting up 30-plus points.
I think it's the optics of the fact of the Lions, despite knowing their defensive deficiencies, they were going to just flat out just outscore people. And the fact that they had the number 1 seed, the fact that they had home field advantage, the fact that they got the bye, the fact that they're playing Washington and not, Philadelphia in the first round, whatever it is, it was all laid out for them this year after what happened, the disappointment last year, to take the next step, to knock the door down, to get to the game, the big game for the first time. And, I think fans in Detroit are still reeling.
Here's what I'll tell you.
I know you're an exception, but I'm just saying the fan base is absolutely reeling.
I can't worry about them. I only worry about myself.
I know.
Here's what I'll tell you. Here's what I'll tell you. If the Lions defense has stayed as healthy as the Vikings defense, they would have run Washington out of the building. They had to kill them. But they didn't have their defense. It was all gone. Aiden Hutchinson still leads the team in sacks for individual play. And he didn't play after week 5.
My point is they had Aiden Hutchinson last year in the NFC Championship game. Why didn't they win that one with a 17-point halftime lead? What happened to their defense that day when they were healthy?
Well, their defense wasn't very good last year either.
Well, they were better than this year. They had their top pass rusher, and they weren't using injuries as an excuse last year when in the championship game.
What does that mean?
I'm just saying that's the game that they should have won.
Well, yeah, they should have won that. Yeah. Well, of course they should have won that.
They're saying they would have run. They would have smashed Washington.
I think they would have won.
Well, they should have smashed San Francisco after they had them down 24-7.
Yeah, I think there's a little bit of difference between Shanahan, Purdy, all the defensive players. You're going to think the San
Francisco. And you're less experienced.
Yeah, you're going to compare Washington to San Francisco?
Well, in terms of quarterbacks right now, I think, Daniels over Purdy every single day of the week and then some.
Then why are you shocked by it then?
Shocked by what?
Well, before you said it was a shocking upset. Now you're saying, well, Jaden Daniels.
No, I said I really wasn't that shocked. When we talked about it at the beginning of the show today, yes.
All I know.
I'm just saying they had a great opportunity last year.
San Francisco has been to, I'd have to look up the exact numbers. Under Shanahan, they
had a hell of a run.
Yeah, so get back when Washington is able to replicate, and maybe they will, what San Francisco done, I'll agree with you, but I just think if Detroit's defense was because their defense was playing above and beyond what they played the year before. That's why this year was if you want to use shock and stunning, Lions defense, the way they played it, that's why Aaron Glenn is being courted, but what he was able to do at the beginning of the season, and was even still able to help win games, despite the fact the defense
and Washington gives every team hope because of what they did from a year ago to this year. I mean, it's why NFL is not for long. I mean, it's really difficult to string together 3-4 really good seasons in a row. It just is.
And then tell me one last one. Let's play the 120 or the 123 talkback. The 120.
Hi, Common. It's officiating guy. Hey, I wanted to send out a congratulations to baby brother Peter for his school winning the national title last night. I wanted to do this in a public forum so everyone knew that I was sending congratulations to him. Like certain celebrities will do.
I always love that. I love it. Yeah. I almost turned that game off at halftime. I thought Ohio State was going to win by 30. Then
what he was referring to.
Yeah, I think so.
I mean, poking fun at you and many others, which I just love.
I'm not quite sure what that has to do.
Well, that's what was his bit people will on their Twitter they'll instead of just like, for instance, if you were to win a Marconi Award, I would just text you and say, "Hey, Mark, congratulations on your Marconi." Right. But most people will tweet it so that everybody goes, "Boy, that Dan Coles, what a nice guy he is. He congratulated Mark Rosen." Well, yeah, I did, but I did so because I have your number. I know we talk. So he's talking about the people that will send out congratulations to people when they do it because they want people to look at them and say, "God, what a nice guy."
Well, the only thing I tweeted out today was expressions of condolences to the late great Willard Eichel. Anyone who followed high school hockey here for decades and decades. The houndstooth hat that he wore, his hat that was a trademark hat, and how many great teams. But more importantly, even though Edina was, the cake eaters and everybody, wanted them to lose, and but Ike was always above it all. He was just a class act and had a great life. Lived to 90, I think 92, 93.
Well, when he was coaching, I believe, and maybe the two schools finally did merge under him.
Yeah,
but wasn't it East-West when he was coaching? And I don't remember if he was East or West. But yeah, I don't remember how many titles he won. But yeah, there was a time that Edina. I mean, they've been strong lately now as well too. But there was a time when I was growing up, when I was paying attention to high school hockey. Edina East and West were both really good hockey teams. I don't know if they made it every year. My memory's not that good, but that was back in the years when War Road always came down.
Yeah, the classic game of all time was War Road and Edina with Henry Boucher and Edina.
But you had the
Net Center.
You had the both the Edina schools played, and you would see some of the other Minnesota, the inner city schools that haven't had any success. Because wasn't like St. Paul, like Johnson or something?
St. Paul, but Herb Brooks won a state high school championship with St. Paul Johnson.
Yeah, right. So there was a time where those teams were really good.
Yeah, the city schools were really good for a while. Minneapolis Southwest, Brad Shellstad, the goalie.
There you go.
Was another one before the numbers just disappeared and they couldn't compete anymore.
So that was back in the olden days.
Yeah, it was.
That
it was.
And so, but... yeah. May he rest in peace.
Yes, indeed.
The houndstooth hat was the classic.
It was a classic.
Well, back in the day, I still think in hockey, don't most coaches still wear a shirt and coat and tie?
High school coaches?
I mean, NHL.
The NHL?
Yeah.
NHL?
Yes. Oh,
yes. That's the one sport.
Almost all of them do. Baseball, they never have. They always wear a player's uniform. But, football, they used to do it all the time.
Well, I find it funny, like KFC was going to the playoff game, and they always show him walking in.
Yeah.
And he walks in with a sport coat and tie, but they don't wear that during the game. So just wear your coaching outfit in. You don't need to wear a suit and tie in.
So, but in the NFL back in the Stram and Landry and all those guys.
Landry in particular.
They all wore a...
Bud always wore a sweatshirt.
Well, Stram did too. They all wore most of them wore a coat and tie.
They did.
And basketball, they did for the longest time. But now most of the guys are just wearing the tracksuit kind of thing like that.
Yeah, Pat Riley was probably the most well-dressed coach.
Yeah, they used to.
He was quite the GQ model.
I'll tell you what, Flip was pretty good too. Flip used to love his Armani suits.
Yeah, he did.
He wore Armani all the time.
Considering it was Flip. You know what I mean? He didn't have Armani personality.
He was a sharp dresser. He was. So the coaches back in the day, they dressed up like they were going out for a night out in the town.
Well, so did the fans, a lot of them.
Yeah.
In sport. You look at some of those old
and then
World
there was
Series
you.
Games.
The first time I ever saw you behind the broadcast desk back in 1980. Shorts. They do the wide shot. You, Kraling, Pat Miles, and Dave Moore.
Right.
And all of a sudden the camera would show all of you sitting there. And then they would zoom into just the anchors. And then when you and Kraling knew you were not on camera until your time, you would come back for the news. You'd do weather and you would do the sports. You got up from behind that desk and you were wearing shorts and flip-flops.
That was a warm day. Yeah.
And I said, say it isn't. You were like, it was like Shoeless Joe Jackson. Say it isn't so, Mark. Say it isn't so.
I just got to wear that once in a while.
I was devastated. See you tomorrow.
Yes, sir.
2 o'clock, right?
Look forward to it.
Timothy, thanks for having me.
Hey, great job.
You as well. We enjoyed our visit with you today. But hang on. Stick around. Don't touch that dial. Big Ticket, JG. They're next, right here in the Fan.
Good night. Good morning. Good afternoon. And good night, Minnesota.
And good night, folks. And good night, Mrs. Calabash. Wherever you are.
Listen back to any of Common Man's programs by podcasting on the iHeartRadio app or KFAN.com.